It's the moment you've all been waiting for before the moment you've all been waiting for. Today is the final BWI Live show where we're going to give you our predictions for what's coming up this weekend with Penn State and Nevada. Of course, who's going to be at the game, and Ryan's going to be previewing some of the upcoming high school games that you need to know for the weekend. BWI Live Recruiting Show is back. I'm Thomas Frank Carr, Sean Fitz, Ryan Snyder on this particular fine Thursday morning. Welcome, gentlemen. Fitz, how you doing this morning? We're going to get into practice in just 1 second, but curious what you've been thinking over the last 24 hours, or 12 hours, I should say, since we saw each other last, or whenever that was, 14.
Yeah, I'm thinking of that camp adage, like somebody's just ready to hit somebody in a different, color, or different team, different helmet, different logo. And I was on the board this morning, and these guys on our message board at Blue White Illustrated really can't wait to hit somebody else because they've been beating up on each other throughout camp, and it's been one of those things. So that's what I'm watching. Also, Ryan didn't get the blue quarter zip memo before we went on, so it's kind of the black sheep here.
Quarter zip, though. I mean,
all right, it's close enough. It's a different color, different logo. We can't wait to hit up on you then later. So no, it's great. It's beautiful in State College, man. It's like it's like fall, like the good kind of fall so far. So it's been really great. So I'm excited for Saturday. Excited to see this how it's gonna work. Excited to see the stadium. I don't know if this is out of line. I think it looks good. Like I think the stuff that they've done, especially on the west side, and you're not allowed to say that, but
not allowed to say that.
The stuff on the west side looks good. It looks structurally sound. I think there's going to be bottlenecks. So if you're going to the game, probably give yourself a little bit more time to get in there than usual. But at the same time, I think it looks good.
I am one of the things I'm jealous of. Not going to the games anymore, being here in the studio in my bunker, rewinding film during commercial breaks, is I don't get to go see the atmosphere at the stadium anymore. And with all these changes, I always find this stuff cool and fascinating. So take lots of pictures. I know I'm not the only one that's going to want to know what's going on with the stadium and how it looks, how it feels, all that stuff. And that's what our guys are going to be there doing on Saturday, is checking out not just Penn State, Nevada, but also the sights and the sounds. So follow us along at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com over the weekend. Ryan, I want to get to you. We don't have like a Penn State recruiting news segment today because we got so much other football stuff to get to. So I just wanted to start with what's going on. I haven't been able to keep up with the recruiting stuff because we've been neck deep in the football side of things. So what do we need to know this morning to start off with our cup of coffee and Penn State football recruiting?
Well, I'm pretty shocked right now that we don't have a comment yet asking about Keemon Spell. Maybe there is. I haven't seen them all, but I've been trying to keep an eye on it. I would say that is the topic that everybody's been kind of discussing this week. Is, obviously Spell goes off last week, 300 some plus yards, all purpose, had that big kick return, and obviously crushed it as a running back. Delaware Valley is not quite on the level of, some of the guys that McKeesport has. He's going to get tested this weekend, tomorrow night against Peters Township. We'll get into that a little later in the show. So looking forward to seeing him play a bigger school that was just in the 6A championship 2 years ago. But obviously, I think the big news with Spell is, of course, that he's going to Ohio State this weekend. That's not anything really new. He's put that out there weeks ago, maybe even a month ago by now. So that's not a surprise. I think really what it's going to come down to is Penn State doing what they always do in Western PA, which is trying to keep guys locked down. This is going to be a unique example, though, because a lot of the success they've had in Western PA, a lot of really good players, not quite, though, on the level of Keemon Spell. So there's a long way to go until he signs. I don't want to overthink it too much at this stage. He should go, take some visits to some degree just because he hasn't really seen any other schools. Been to Penn State 9 times, over the years. So that's a positive sign. But I think after that performance last week, and then maybe some people didn't realize he was going to Ohio State, it's really kind of caught some eyes this week, which, oh, by the way, he's not the only really good Penn State commit who's going to Ohio State this weekend. Khalil Taylor is as well. He confirmed that for us, I believe, Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. So, it's obviously a massive game out there this weekend. I don't begrudge anybody wanting to attend that game. It's certainly the game of the weekend, and will be the non-conference game without a doubt of the season. But we'll have to keep an eye on that because Spell has a handful of additional visits coming up as well. What I'll be really kind of curious to see is does Khalil Taylor start taking a few more visits? I didn't expect him to go to Ohio State as of 48 hours ago. That changed then recently. Is he going out with just 7-on-7 teammates and things? I kind of let him go once I confirmed it. I didn't want to bug him too much because mainly I want to bug him after. I want to learn more about how that visit went and what he's thinking after he takes that visit and see where things are at.
targeted pestering. That's why you're a true professional.
You got to pick your spots.
You know all of those things. Let's get into, of course, we're going to get more into recruiting in just a minute because we got some high school games coming up, more on spell and what Ryan just previewed there. But last night we were at Penn State practice, so it's time to get our Penn State practice update, the first one in season for 2025.
You gotta win, goddamn Tyler. You gotta win.
Fitz, start with you. What did you see yesterday? What was interesting to you when you were walking around Penn State practice? I have my opinions and thoughts. I'll get to that after you, but of course, you you go first here on the show.
Yeah, I went to the offensive field for the first time through practice. I mean, it's only the second practice I've been to, but I went to the offensive field, looked around, a lot of scout team numbers, a lot of D squad numbers, which is really interesting to me. Not because it changes anything with what's going to happen this season, but you look at the offensive line and you see, first off, acquaint yourself with the roster because there have been roster number changes, but at the same time, you see Egan Boyer in 55, Garrett Sexton in 76. You see Javen Williams wearing 56, I believe it was. So a lot of different numbers. And what they usually do is they break up the travel squad and they break up the D squad. Now there's some things playing into, for example, Javen Williams, he's coming off of an injury. He has been limited in camp. James Franklin, I don't know if he finally admitted it. We've been talking about it all August, but he finally admitted that he had some changes made to his practice scheduling because of the way that he would have to recover.
He took the long way around in talking about what was going on with Javen Williams. He did everything to not say what was going on with Javen in his press conference yesterday.
Right, but there have been adjustments made to certain guys' practice schedules because of maintenance, really, whether it be healing, whether it be, trying to keep a guy like Zariah Fisher, as healthy as he needs to be when he needs to be there. Like, I think those things all matter. But because of that, you're seeing a lot of guys moving around in different spots. And I think it's kind of a reflection of the first the weeks of the season. It is, an extended preseason, if you will. Again, I don't like saying that, but at the same time, it's out there in front of you. Everybody, the fans are saying it. Why can't I? You're looking at different roles for different guys, different rep counts for different guys. And you see that in the offensive line. You see that at running back where Quentin Martin's wearing his number and none of the other backs were wearing their own number. And usually you think in a game like this, you want to have 5 guys wearing their own number, doing their own thing. They can work around it. They can make it happen. So it was back to the in-season practice looks where you don't really see too much. They don't give away too much. We're in there a little bit shorter, and that's just part of the whole plan there. So you're looking at this, and you're seeing a team that is preparing a lot of players to play a lot more reps on Saturday.
That was the one thing I noticed was not only during the offseason, they're trying to get as many players, as many reps as possible is how it seems. How you're trying to make sure everyone goes through a drill and you're coaching all the guys of, on certain things. But then they're really working with the starters in a lot of these situations. They're working with the first team on, if you're watching here on the YouTube channel, with the receivers on some of their footwork, making sure they're able to plant and explode off the correct foot when getting in and out of breaks. One of the things I found interesting, and Fitz, I want to get your opinion on where this is going, but this is the second time, I think, in 2 weeks that we've seen Aaron Enterline with this top group. Again, not in his number, but with this top group going through drills. We saw that happen late in camp as well. Is that a signal of he's close to being a part of that conversation, or is this a numbers thing? What do you take from a guy who I think, you pointed out and it's pretty clear during his testing when he was a walk-on, pretty talented individual, but super under the radar. How do you view his progression so far in camp and where he might sit on the roster?
Yeah, for those not familiar, Aaron Enterline is a redshirt freshman wide receiver, 6'2", 188 from Manheim Central. Of course, Manheim Central, a power in the Lancaster area. This is a guy really under-recruited. Penn State basically got a scholarship athlete as a walk-on. And we've seen that with him. We've seen that with Colin Dinkins. There are just guys that, certainly develop and stay under the radar for whatever reason. Colin Dinkins wasn't a, big-time recruiter didn't have the profile of a big time recruit. Enderline had great numbers. He was a big 33 guy, great size, great speed. It just never happened for him. And Penn State's pretty happy that it didn't, because he's a guy that came in last year, 4 weeks, the developmental squad offensive player of the week. He's made some plays since he's been here, and that's kind of what you have to do. And you've got a lot of boxes checked from the triangle numbers, the size, the speed, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, he's kind of put his head down and got where he's needed to be. Now, I think him being up there is kind of a reflection of what Penn State is going to try and do at receiver this week, because you've got an opportunity with maybe Devontae Ross a little bit limited in what they're going to use him for. So Liam Clifford steps in as a starter, and then you can kind of everybody takes a step up. So I think Enderline kind of fits into that role. I'm excited to see what he can do. I mean, this is a guy that has worked his way up there. He put up, again, big numbers in high school, was really good in camp. I think he went from I'm doing this off the top of my head, he was a 4.58 guy in camp. So not, a guy that's going to be a 4.3 guy, but he's turned into a 4.4 guy in college.
Right.
He matured. So if you can scout, if you can find those guys, and that's a credit to the Penn State coaching staff. They found this guy. They made him a priority as a walk-on, and then all of a sudden he's one of those guys that would be on your 105 if you had to cut it down to a 105. So I think that's really what we're looking at here. And he's still a redshirt freshman, so a lot to like there. And he's been available. He's been healthy. Peter Gonzalez has been hurt.
Yeah.
Earlier this week, Josiah Brown is out for the long term. So the guys in his class, he's been on the field more than them.
I think that's a really good point. Is you've had a lot of these guys that have, from that freshman class, had struggled with availability, even if they have similar size skill set and something you want from that receiver room. By the way, as Fitz said, we saw less on Wednesday night, and when we did see stuff, people decided to stand in the way. So if you're watching the YouTube for the highlights, I apologize, even though there's nothing I really could have done about it. We got to see some one-on-ones that you saw there. And I was actually, to talk about the offensive line, Anthony Donko, the right guard, Nolan Rucci, the right tackle, and James Franklin talked about that battle yesterday after practice and how the decision-making process of how to play that group went together. When they did play against Dennis Sutton, against, the most athletic defensive tackles, not named Zane Durant, they looked pretty good in those one-on-ones that we got to see before the forest got too thick and couldn't see through the trees in those one-on-one pass rushing drills. So Penn State's offensive line, I think, do you still have questions about Nolan Rucci, Fitz? Are there still questions in your mind about how that's going to play out this year, or do you think that's fairly well locked in that he's going to be the right tackle this year? So
that's a small question as part of a larger question, in that where is this offensive line right now going into the season? And I think a lot of people have seen the Joe Moore Award stuff and all the high expectations, which I absolutely think they should have high expectations. But I also think that, there's going to be some kinks in here. There's going to be, and that's the offense as a whole more so than the offensive line, because you're looking at Donka, who's not playing a new position, but playing a position that he didn't play last year as a right tackle. And then all of a sudden he's the right guard. Again, good problems to have. And a lot of these programs throughout the country, and that's why I'm really interested in watching Texas Ohio State this week, is offensive line's really hard, and average offensive lines are good offensive lines in college, and I think Penn State's got a good offensive line, but it's a different scheme. I mean, I've seen so many references to 94, and I think you can just kind of get that out of your head right now. Like there's not going to be another 94 offensive line, because it's just such a different game now, and the guys on the other side, they're freakazoids, right? I mean, you look at 94, Simeon Rice is on the other side. Well, now they're all Simeon Rice, right? It's just kind of how the game has evolved in the last 30 years. So stay in front of them, and I think they can do that. Rucci really came on at the end of last season, but again, that's just part of the data there. That's just part of the story. He had to really improve to get where he needed to get. Now I think he can be a really good player there, but he's going to continue to have to improve. And I think that's kind of the story of this entire team is Rucci heard a lot this offseason about how good he was, and how does he process that? How does he handle that? This team, they've heard a lot. They're the number 2 team in the country about how good they are. How do they process that? How do they handle that? Do they go out and step on the throat of Nevada this weekend, which I think they will. But how much of that, or how much do you learn from that? How much do you continue to improve from that? So I think that's my biggest thing with a guy like Rucci, who has absolutely improved since he's gotten to Penn State. But he still has room to sort of be a big time player out there. So I'm comfortable with the offensive line, but I don't think that it's going to be a road grading, like right off the bat, everybody is so much better than everyone else. And then again, the first test that you're going to see this is going to be Oregon in a month.
I do think that that right side, you saw some dynamic blocking from those two guys individually. There is a potential for at least those two, Rucci and Donko, to have some pretty special moments. But I would agree, like, as far as like having a complete unit that dominates from the beginning of the season to the end of the season, that doesn't necessarily work that way. And even in the best games, like, there is, a lot of talent on the other side of the ball. Last thing I want to get to from camp, from practice. Got to get out of off-season mode. We're in season now. Z-Man points out QB2, Ethan Grunkmeyer for week 1, being our newsbreaker here in the chat from Z-Man. I thought it was interesting the way that this has developed. Franklin, I think, got a little bristly about having to talk about it again. It reminded me a little bit of when Nick Saban was asked about Tua Tagovailoa and Jalen Hurts. Of he doesn't want to keep bringing it up because he wants those guys to compete and to feel like they're both in the race. And the more you talk about this kind of stuff, the more it can be divisive for the room, or it can be, just generating headlines about a thing that they want to just happen internally. Is that a fair read of like how that's gone, or is he just tired of having to talk about every single press conference getting a question about that backup quarterback position, Fitz?
I mean, first off, really funny when Rich Scarcella earlier this week didn't get his question in, and then he got his question in. James was like, never mind, I don't want to talk about that. Number two, I mean, I think it's just one of those things where you're managing quarterback egos. This is a tough, and when I see egos, I don't mean it's over the top or anything like that, but when you lose a job, it hurts. When you miss out on the thing that you're going for, it hurts. And I think that Smolik is close to Grunk, but I think as you've seen in the coverage in the last couple of weeks, it was pretty clear that it was pointing to Ethan Grunkmeyer being the backup there. So, I guess officially naming a quarterback here's the thing. If Franklin didn't have to name one, if he wasn't put with a microphone in his face, he wouldn't have done it. He didn't name Drew a starter until the pregame of the West Virginia game a couple of years ago. Is that right? Like that's the whole thing, is like, keep those cards hidden until you have to. And if you win the hand and nobody calls you, just muck them, like that's kind of the whole approach here, is to keep everybody above water, because this is a big picture story. This is not just about QB2 in week 1 against Nevada. This is competing throughout the spring, figuring out who's going to be your starter next year, and going from that. And all these little, all these little dominoes make a big difference. So I think that that's really why he would kind of avoid talking about it. Again, if you've been reading any coverage of ours, like, you knew it was going to be Grunk. You knew it was going to be a situation where this is going to play. But he also has to add that part at the end about, hey, this is still ongoing, because you get him in the game, you never know what's going to happen. Smolik looked pretty good in live action in the spring. So I'm very curious to see how this continues to go. We don't see the scrimmages on Sunday, which is something Franklin also highlighted. And it was interesting as well, because Smolik was one of those guys in a practice team jersey. Like, he was wearing number 13, instead of his number. So I just find that very fascinating to see how close this is and how they're going to continue to play it out. And, you want to get your backup quality reps, but at the same time, he's going to turn around on Sundays and also take reps in the scrimmages. So there's a lot on their plates right now. And that's kind of what you need, because you don't want to, here we are again, a Taquan Roberson situation.
We're going to move on. There's a lot of meat left on the bone, but we've got a lot of show to go, and we've got to talk about a lot more from other than practice last night, and I want to get Ryan back in here. We got a question in the chat that I'm going to throw Ryan's way, but before we get to that, today's show is brought to you by Andy Ludicky of My Perfect Franchise. You should give him a call, 404-973-9901, or Andy at myperfectfranchise.net. That's the info. That's how you go about and do it. Why do you want to do it? Because you want to live the life. You want to live your best life, as they say on Instagram. You want to live a life that is what you want it to be. And if you're ready to leave the corporate rat race for the American dream, I just saw a tweet online. Somebody was doing that themselves. They said, I'm done with corporate America. Now, I didn't read, the TLDR of the whole post, but it resonated with me thinking about this, and we talk about this with Andy all the time. if you're looking to the next stage of your life, give Andy a call. What he does is he helps you buy into a franchise. So you're not starting from scratch. You're not starting a business from absolutely zero. There is a structure in place, and if it is something that makes sense for you, he'll help you with all the process from what the business does, how the buying process works, what all the numbers mean, what all the legal stuff means, all the details that he's been through multiple times as somebody who's bought a franchise already. And then, of course, coaching people for almost a decade now with franchise buying and buying into these things. So you should give him a call if you have the skills to run your own business and you want to make money for yourself. You should absolutely give Andy a call, 404-973-9901. I'm a give a guy a call sort of person. I'm old enough that phone calls were a large part of my childhood. I know everyone texts now, but if you want to get on a schedule, Andy at myperfectfranchise.net as well. This show also brought to you by Ann Lusk and Associates. I love houses. I love real estate. I love architecture. I spent 5 years of my life obsessing over trying to find a house, and it just never went away. So when I got the chance to meet Ann, I thought this was a perfect setup for me as somebody to talk about this stuff, but also I thought it was a good fit for Blue White Illustrated because of the professionalism and the excellent work that they do. She's one of the most renowned real estate agents in Pennsylvania, and the purchase of a home is a major life milestone. This is something that most of us are only going to do once, and that deserves guidance and experienced professionals. It's not a DIY project. It's not something you're going to go out there and negotiate all of the legal terms and check all the boxes correctly the first time. Sure, you may actually buy or sell a home, but did you do it right? Are you getting screwed? You have probably no idea. So Lusk & Associates Sotheby International Realty is known for delivering world-class service backed by a trusted name and a commitment to excellence. Proud supporters of all things blue and white. She's a huge Penn State fan, and they are now here in the Happy Valley market and beyond, so both offering local expertise and global connections with their Sotheby Realty connections. If you're buying a first home, maybe you're selling a luxury home or land, you should give them a call. If you relocate, lots of people love relocating to State College, especially to retire, so that you can become a Penn State superfan and go to all the games. Well, you should give them a call, 814-808-7588. Again, that is 814-808-7588, or visit LuskAndAssociates.com today. Lusk & Associates, Sotheby's International Realty, where experience meets excellence. Ryan, I mentioned there's a question here in the chat for you, and we have covered this a couple of times. But Logan asks this. He says, "I know Penn State wants to spend on developed talent on the roster, retaining Katron Allen, Nick Singleton, Drew Aller, etc. But if those guys had gone to the NFL, where would the current class be in 2026? And would they have been more aggressive with some of those targets?" Obviously, Keemon Spell is out there right now, and all of these things are going to change next year. So Logan asks, I think, a very logical question about what the next round of Penn State's decision-making process with NIL and recruits might be. Do you have an insight about how all that might change with so many seniors moving on?
Sean, I think we agree. The short answer is no, not really. I'm not going to pretend we know all the ins and outs of the collective and then the different things of revenue sharing just because it's kind of kept low profile more than anything. We've dug on it to some degree, but I wouldn't say that people are going out of their way to give all the different details on how they go about spending. What I do know, for example, USC, it's kind of been out there now that they have enough of a booster base or enough of a collective base, whatever you want to call it. They were able to pay a lot to their team before this revenue sharing kicked in July. And that had a somewhat of an impact on how they were able to be more aggressive than with 2026 class. Penn State doesn't have that, point blank. I've dug a little bit on it. And for the most part, what I've gathered is no, it didn't have much of an impact. The guys that'll be out next year, it just kind of funnels up through. So sure, could they have maybe been a little more aggressive on a couple guys? If that wouldn't have been the case, I'm sure to some degree they would have been able to find some ways, but I don't think it's a major difference maker just from the whole pot that Penn State has. I think at the end of the day, Penn State's pot just isn't as big as a lot of others, and they have to go about it. And James is also very steadfast on how he wants to pay his locker room and keep his locker room intact. Now, with Keemon Spell, first off, he's 2 years away too, so we're still kind of way down the road with that one. But yeah, they probably will have to end up being a bit more aggressive there than maybe they had hoped when he committed what was like a year ago now. So, you know, time will tell as far as what they're able to do as far as retaining him and stuff. They're going to have to, he's going to take these visits. And look, we're still, I think for 2027 class, I don't think there's a lot of money discussions going on. This is still a class that's kind of far out, but it's also no secret that we have multiple years of data to kind of back it up now, that the more you get out there, the more you visit, the more connections you make, you know, it does tend to lead to
the higher your price goes.
Yeah, that's fair. So I think that's kind of the concern more than anything. I don't think they're really talking about money right now with a lot of these guys, but you know, the more hooks in the water, you know, usually more often than not, it kind of moves things up.
Yeah.
So I think the thing here is it's all the same pot, right? They're not getting money for retention. They're not getting money for recruiting. They're not getting money for the current roster. Everything is out of the same pot. And you mentioned USC. USC had a much bigger pot because I think what they did is they went and front loaded it ahead of this House settlement, ahead of all the changes that were made this summer with a deadline, and they front loaded ahead of that to get all this money in. And they did a wonderful job mobilizing, getting all that stuff together, and you're seeing it with their class. Like they are breaking market value for all these guys because they can, because that's the choice that they've made. And they're not holding on to, for example, Kyron Hudson. They're not holding on to the guys on the back end of their roster. So yes, in that model, it's changing. In Penn State's model, they did not get the essentially cash heavy bonus up front, but they have this big pot where a big part of that's going to retention, and it's all going to affect. So and this is probably overstated, but the guy that they're paying a lot of money to in 2025 is going to affect not so much the 2026, 2027 guys, but it's going to affect the bottom guy on the roster, the bottom guy on who is getting paid, or the youngest guy. I won't say bottom, I'll say the youngest guy. So the top to the bottom, it's going to affect everyone. They went out of their comfort zone for some bids this summer, and it didn't work because there was still not enough money. Like you'd think of Luke Wafel, and I think that, you know, Penn State was somewhat competitive. The numbers there for USC are just far and away beyond that, far and away beyond Ohio State too. That's the conversation we're also having, is that they're outbidding everybody. So I think that's really what it comes down to is there's a limited pot. Like there's money. The money is finite. The money you can promise is not finite. I mean, and I think that's where Penn State kind of,
that's a great plan.
That's where Penn State kind of gets, I don't want to say gets in its own way, but yeah, they could promise it, but they have a duty to fulfill the promises they make. And that's kind of where they find themselves with, especially with that 2026 class, is they don't want to just throw everything out of whack. And players follow it, parents follow it, coaches follow it, high school coaches follow it, agents follow it. Everybody follows the numbers, whether the numbers are accurate or not. There was a report that came out this week about the revenue share, and are they absolutely accurate? They're probably closer than most, but all these numbers are basically, it's like me in algebra. Like once they brought letters into it, I was out on math. That's where you're seeing with NIL right now. It's like you don't know what the numbers actually are. You've got good ideas, but that's kind of where you find yourself. So Penn State has found itself in a situation where they have good NIL. It's not great. Yeah. Like it is improved. They've done a really good job getting to where they need to get. There's also the stadium in play. There's also some other things that are in play, but they've improved, but they're just not where they needed to be to catch up with them. And I think there's other schools out there that have really improved that are underselling their improvement because it's smart business, right? Like you don't want everybody to know that you have a ton of money, because if you have a ton of money, everybody's going to come to you with their hand out. But Notre Dame has spent well. Michigan has spent well. You know, and
Michigan
when I say well,
really tight, has really ramped it up recently.
Yeah, and when I say spent well, you don't know, because a couple years out, how is that $1 million quarterback going to look as your backup? You know, and that's not a Michigan thing. That's other schools have dealt with that. So I think it's very interesting to just kind of watch, because we're in that bubble. 3 years, 4 years where you don't know how it's going to go. And yes, on paper, we keep going back to it, on paper, Penn State's plan is probably the right one from a smart spending / return on investment type of plan. But until then, how do all these recruiting losses going to stack up? How are you going to retain great players if the players that you are missing out on become great players? Like that is the big question. And I don't know how they're going to do it, because I'm looking at the roster a couple of years down the road, and it's going to change. And, maybe you get some more portal luck, and maybe you get some more portal spending with guys clearing the books. But man, it's looks great on paper, doesn't always work out well in the real world.
And it makes those perceived hits like Chaz Coleman or, I think what we all think of Max Granville that much more important that you were able to get some of those wins. But yeah, you want to make sure you keep finding those guys. And it was funny as you were talking about being smart with money and return on investment. And it feels like Penn State can't win in this situation because they invest in the stadium and everyone is like fiscally irresponsible and trying to be fiscally responsible with their NIL and put it in the right places. And everyone's like, why aren't you spending more? You cannot win. You cannot win in these situations.
Well, it's the why aren't you spending more? Okay, give us money. Well, not like that.
Yeah, don't do that.
Money. So I mean, it's just and that's the system, right? Like that's not just Penn State. That's college football right now. Everything is about how much you can spend, and the money there is also finite. We haven't gotten to that level yet, but it's finite.
Let's get into the guys that are going to be making those decisions, and maybe some of these guys down the road will be Penn State Nittany Lions. The game visitor list for Nevada. Ryan, I was really impressed when I read this morning. Nearly 50 players. We were talking about this being maybe a ghost town, and for the first 3 weeks of the season. You guys pushed back on that over the last couple of weeks, I should say. Nevada's looking pretty good, so here we are. What are we looking at for week 1 visitors?
Yeah, this was always the plan to try and have a good showing this week. And I think again, especially considering Ohio State, Texas is in town, and how anticipated that game is for regional guys. And don't get me wrong, there would be a lot of top talent there, but remember, Ohio State also recruits nationally too. So it didn't drain the region, I think, as much as maybe I kind of thought it might. But, right now I have about a dozen scholarship guys there. It'll be more than that. It'll probably be about 15 or so. And the thing that's also impressive to me is how many guys with Power 4 offers are going to be in town, guys that I do expect Penn State to offer at some point. I mean, that's well over 20 right now. And, there'll be some other young guys who, aren't really on the radar at the moment, but we'll certainly be talking about here, in the year ahead. So I think it's actually one of the best non-Power 4 opponent lists I've seen. Sean, I don't know. I mean, can't think of too many in recent years that stack up as far as this goes, talent wise. But obviously they've also always had, it's been a 9-game schedule. They've been playing the West Virginias and the Auburns and stuff like that. So you've always kind of had a marquee game where you really haven't had too many of these 3 lower, not as fun opponents in the non-conference season. So from that perspective, it does kind of make sense that this would be one of the better ones for a group of 5 team. But to kind of start off, I mean, to me, Isaiah Rodgers obviously is a top guy that I think everybody's really excited to talk about. I think one of the more exciting running backs that we got to see at camp this year. What's curious to me though with Isaiah is, when they offered Isaiah is also when Keemon Spell started asking questions about 2 running backs and different things like that. So I'm curious to see kind of how Penn State handles that, because obviously keeping Keemon Spell is priority number 1 right now for this team. But to me, he looks like a really good back, top 100 player, 8th ranked running back in the country right now by Rivals. He's out of Springfield, Massachusetts, by the way, 5'10", 190. But, to me, he's one of the top guys that I think could realistically end up at Penn State. Raylon Henry's coming in as well from St. Francis. To me, I don't know how realistic that is long-term, for Penn State to kind of land him.
Hey,
I guess they did get one.
Come on.
What's that?
Penn State's back in at St. Francis. They got Amari Polidor,
who didn't join St. Francis or wasn't really even part of St. Francis.
I know.
But I know. So, long-term, we'll see if they can do that there. But to me, Raylon Henry's more of a national recruit, will probably end up elsewhere. But to me, I'd have Isaiah Rodgers certainly circled as a top guy. Ryan Wooten's a 3-star prospect. Lorenzo Tartamella, another 3-star prospect. 2 2027 guys who have Penn State offers. Tartamella seems like someone who's certainly very interested in Penn State. Where he stacks up on Deion Barnes's board long term, we'll see. And we have him at 6'2", 220. He's more of an edge guy right now, but I could see him certainly growing into an interior lineman long term. You know, Wooten, I still kind of have to learn more about. He's at St. Peter's Prep too, which is another school that we like to joke about as far as a program Penn State has struggled with at times. But there's certainly some good talent. I think the 2028 list is pretty good too. But Sean, I'll throw it to you if there's anybody you want to discuss first.
Oh, thank you. I was looking at some other stuff now. No, I mean, I think it's a good group. I think that you mentioned Cam Toomey.
I would like to jump in. I would like to jump in about Cam Toomey when you're done here, Fitz.
No, please go now because I'm still I'm reopening the list because I thought Ryan covered it pretty well. I was like, I'm going to skate on this one, and then I did not. Bud.
So I know it was great. I'm calling this way too early, and I know this is way too early. Cam Toomey's my next Damari Simeon. This is the next guy that, as a defensive tackle, has weirdly athletic movement skills. He's already 6'3", 240. Seen him at camp this year, the way he moved around as a defensive lineman. I don't think, I saw Damari Simeon as a junior, which is very different than seeing a guy as a freshman. But just look at the way he moves like an outside linebacker and a guy that's going to, as a freshman here, this is a guy that I think, where he is, being in upstate New York, being a guy who has that size and frame, for Penn State, I would hope he stays there and kind of stays under the radar because the traits here are what Penn State wants. He's got the thickness to be a defensive tackle, full-sized, 6'3", 310-pound defensive tackle with those athletic movement skills. And a lot of things can change. Like, Yvonne Kamaju is at defensive end and didn't develop into a defensive tackle. We'll see how all this goes, but I'm putting a chip down here on Cam Toomey being one of the next Damari Simeon-like athletes at defensive tackle for Penn State as we're talking about him in a couple of years.
All right.
He different builds, but certainly good.
Yeah, he was at camp this year. He's just one of those guys that grows from a DN to a D tackle eventually, just because, he's that big already. It's just going to happen. But no, looking over the list there, Dewey Young from Michigan. We have him as the number 154 player, number 12 offensive tackle in the country in 2027. I don't know that, he probably walks away with an offer this weekend. It's one of those things where you make the effort to get here. It makes sense. They'll continue to scout him. And that's kind of what you're seeing with the 27 class right now is you've got guys all over the place that, have the check marks and everything, but it's still an evaluation time. And I think that even goes back and kind of jumping the gun here, but looking at 2026, kind of posted that earlier today on the site is everything's going to be very important for the first couple of weeks of film because you're trying to reshuffle the deck, but you also are kind of out of sorts because you didn't have the July evaluation period this year. It's been a long time since you've seen anybody in person. And that gap feels like forever ago for multiple reasons, feels like forever ago. So you're taking a look at these guys that are coming in and saying, okay, well, you got the offer, but really the end of September, which is when Penn State offered Chaz Coleman last year, is going to be the litmus test of where these guys stand, I think, at least for the next step for 2026 and to some extent 2027.
Yeah, I had a hard time because I was trying to find stuff for maybe week 1 or week 2 for some of these guys. Like I wanted updated Isaiah Rodgers highlights, and I think where he is, he might not even be playing football yet. So it's like some of these highlights you're seeing.
Yeah, New England's still got a couple more weeks, man. Like they don't start until late. I know Jersey starts this weekend. Pennsylvania started last weekend. So I don't know if Pennsylvania was week 0 last weekend or not, but they just got started as well. So have to keep reminding yourself it's August 28th. So there will be tape. It's just a matter of, Yeah,
some of these highlights are from last year, and I was like, I don't really want to put these up here, but I want to give an example of what we're talking about. Right. Ryan, are there any other guys that you have kind of on the top of your mind or that you want to talk about?
I was going to say Penn State was trying to actually get Keegan Krauser on campus this weekend. Like that was a attempt that they really worked at, but he starts the way the New England prep schedule works. I think they start camp. They're allowed to start camp September 1, I believe. So he had to get up there this weekend, and move in and all those kind of things. He's originally from New York, obviously. So that's a little bit of a bummer because right now he's not scheduled to be here until early November, I believe it is, for the Indiana game. And, obviously they want to get him on campus as much as possible and as soon as possible, really. So that was a bit of a miss there. It's unfortunate timing. But only other thing I'd add is just 2 interesting running backs. Again, we're in this position where I'll be very interested to see how Penn State handles it. Xavier Balla, good-looking running back. I thought he had a pretty good camp season, Sean. I think we talked about him after Under Armour. I think you got to see him there out of St. Anthony's in New York. Right now, we don't have him rated, but I could see him being a low 4-star kind of guy here at some point. I believe ESPN has him rated already as a 4-star, but we'll see with Rivals and 24/7. But another guy who's, I think, been on campus a couple times now, certainly has some Penn State interest. It's just how do they go about handling that? And then one more, Kelvin Morrison, out of Hickory High School in Hermitage, PA. He's got an Ohio State offer, actually. Got a couple really good ones. I believe Tennessee, Florida, Wisconsin, Va Tech. I'm missing one more. Miami, I want to say. But it's pretty good offer list, for an in-state guy who doesn't have a Penn State offer yet. And the fact that he doesn't kind of tells me, how important spell is and how they're going to try and juggle that, because this seems like a guy that Penn State would probably offer. Now, is there other things there? I'm not exactly sure, and we'll learn on that, because it has been a little hard to dig on Morrison at times, but he's certainly a guy I'm watching closely. He had a pretty strong summer from what I understand. He picked up some really good offers.
So let's talk about spell a little bit more. One of the top games of the week for Ryan. We're going to be talking about prospects to watch this weekend, and that obviously bleeds over into the games to watch this weekend, both Friday and Saturday. If you want the full list, go to BlueWhiteIllustrated.com and sign up for our $1 deal, which is great because you can sign up now for $1, get game week, try it out, be part of the in-game thread. We are your second screen on a Penn State football Saturday to watch the game with like-minded people who are going to yell about every incompletion and be angry at every punt and then celebrate like crazy people and say, this is our year after every single touchdown. And then, of course, you get all of our analysis and our post-game content after the game as well. So make sure you check us out, BlueWhiteIllustrated.com, $1 for the first week. We had a question here in the chat from 2 kids, 1 wife, all PSU. He asked, how close are we to 18,000 subscribers, or 19? How close are we to 18,000 subscribers here on YouTube? Because we just crossed over into 17,900. You can all see that live on the YouTube channel. We just got there, so we need about 100 more of you to join up, so we'll get to 18. If 2 kids, if you want to if you want to go and recruit people to join the YouTube channel, we would absolutely love that. There's this new thing YouTube is doing where you can hype our videos. I have yet to figure out what that means or how you do it, but it helps you to, tell people, as I've said here on the show, like if you like the video, tells people it doesn't suck. This is a more aggressive way to tell people the video doesn't suck, but I don't know how to.
I just thought the hype thing was your thumbnail with your picture on it. So that's I need to make that a clickable button. Yeah.
Yes, we do. Just make my forehead the clickable hype button. So, Ryan, some high school games you want to watch this weekend, some prospects you want to watch this weekend.
Absolutely. You mentioned spell, so I'll start there. Anyone who watched spell, even if you didn't watch spell, it got thrown in your face at how much that got promoted for his performance last week. And it should have been, right? I mean, again, 300, almost 400 all-purpose yards, including that kick return. Really impressive. He's going against a whole different team this weekend. And that's why, obviously we wrote about it. We talked about it. It's good. We're going to learn a lot more about spell. And let's clarify, it's going to be all on McKeesport. We're going to learn more about that program because Peters Township is a top 10 program in Pennsylvania. Reston Layman's going to Pitt. Lucas Shannonfeld's going to Stanford. There's some really good Division I prospects on the other side of that team. Mm-hmm. And, we're going to see him go against a different size program, whatever you want to put it. I mean, they got a lot more to pull from than Delaware Valley does. Like right now, Delaware Valley's, I don't know, like out of the top 100 in the state. So let's not overthink that too much. But I think we'll learn a lot. That game's tomorrow night at 7. It's the one game I haven't found a stream for, which I find crazy. Somebody out there in Pittsburgh has to be streaming that. But
and it's public too. Like that's pretty cool, I think.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is the public one, what's going to be on TV, is actually Pine Ridge and Central Catholic, because that's tomorrow night as well. And of course, that's going to be Khalil Taylor's first time with Pine Richland, because he did not play against Findlay in week 1. And of course, Central Catholic lost last week into LaSalle. Central Catholic actually lost to Pine Richland, I think, like 4 years in a row or something like that. And Central Catholic always kind of has the more Division I talent. I think that speaks highly of Pine Richland's program, their coaches, all those kind of things. But we're going to get our first look at Khalil Taylor. I'm going to post this story up here probably after the show. But I have links for everything as far as if you want to watch it, whether it's on YouTube, whether you got to pay for it, whatever it may be. So if you do subscribe, I got everything in there for you guys to be able to watch these games. But getting our first look at Khalil Taylor, especially against a program like Central Catholic, if you're around at 7 o'clock tomorrow, which I'm sure you will be, but you'll also probably be watching college football. But pull it up on your laptop, stream some of these games because they're going to be really interesting to watch. There is one also really good game today, or I don't know how good of a game it'll be, but one I think Penn State fans should keep an eye on. And that's Winslow Township against IMG Academy. Battle at the Beach in Ocean City, New Jersey starts today. I think there's 10 games total over the next handful of days. And what we're going to get here is Julian Peterson, Penn State's cornerback, missed some time last year, had a good season, but wasn't able to put together a full year. He's going to go against some really, really talented wide receivers. Asani Gales is one of the top 2027 guys. Zion White's another one. Eric McFarland's a really good looking slot receiver in the 2028 class. So just watching how he matches up against some talent that honestly he gets a little bit of that, but kind of more of a public school New Jersey. It's not like he's going against those, Bergen Catholic, St. Peter's, Don Bosco's of the world regularly. So, how he handles those matchups, I think that's the most interesting thing to watch in this game. That's tonight at 7 p.m. I believe that's on Flow Sports, though. So for all you wrestling fans out there who have Flow, you should be able to watch that pretty easily. And it'll be a good stream and all those things, too. But that's certainly a match that I'm going to be watching tonight, or game I'm going to be watching tonight.
Shout out to Bob Long Sports, which is here on YouTube. You can watch LaSalle versus Malvern Prep. I went to college with Bob. He was a comm radio alum with me from the College of Communication. So there's a lot, obviously, in Malvern Prep versus LaSalle. So that's obviously a game you can watch. And it's been one of the reasons it's one of the easiest resources. I root for Penn State to recruit LaSalle kids because I know I'm going to get to watch most of their games. McDonough and LaSalle. They're on YouTube. I don't have to worry about it. I know where to go find those videos.
Sadly, they missed out on all the LaSalle guys. So, yeah, that worked.
I know, right? Like, it made a lot of that, like,
but at least they're playing Malvern, who has one Penn State guy, and Jackson Ford, right? So,
yeah.
Listen, actually, this matchup, too, is Grayson McHugh versus Jackson Ford or George Parkinson, too, a young 2028 up-and-coming DN who I think could probably end up being even better than Jackson Ford. But I'm not sure exactly how they're going to, line those two up. We'll find out here, tomorrow night around 6. I think that game starts. But yeah, that I have Bob's URL highlighted in this story. So we'll make sure to funnel people that way.
Fitz, what do you expect from Cade Cooper? We saw him this summer. I think we all liked him. Playing at Malvern. Receiver is always a hot button issue for Penn State fans until somebody breaks out, and we start that this year to see if that's going to happen. Is he a guy that I know he got an offer from Penn State this summer, but what are you expecting to see from him this year, and kind of where do you place him in the stratosphere of 2027 guys?
Yeah, he was all over the place in terms of when we saw him at camp this summer as a receiver and also as a safety. So he's just a big body guy that can really move. I was hoping to see him as an individual at camp, but what we saw at camp, team camp, I thought was enough to kind of put him over the line. I think he's a really good player. I think he's a really good fit for what Penn State has done, and I think he's got a guy that's going to continue to ascend. When we're talking about the big picture in 2027, he's definitely going to be out there. So, LaSalle, Malvern Prep, he's going to find Joey O'Brien. Like that's going to be one of those ones where the cream's going to rise. And Joey's one of the better high school players, I think I've ever covered. But at the same time, Cade Cooper's got a statement to make, and I'm excited to see if he's able to do that. Sometimes what will happen during these games is they find themselves in the offense-defense matchups, and then they flip it over, and you find yourself in the same matchups because you're going best on best. And that should tell us a lot about Cade Cooper, how he's going to, handle everything, and different kind of player than Joey. But at the same time, I really like him a lot. Like I think he's a guy that I think I said it at camp that day. I was like, they need to offer this guy, and I don't say that about a lot of guys, especially based on team camp. But he just carries himself in a certain way that you appreciate. And Penn State has had some luck at Malvern Prep. Of course, Jackson Ford's in that class. So, go back to Lonnie White. They have a good reputation there. It's just a matter of finding the right buttons to push. And now that you're in the 105 land, kind of where we find ourselves here, you can always make room for guys. And I think Penn State's going to try and do that in Pennsylvania in 2027 because I think it matters to have that sort of base to work with. And Cade Cooper, to me, as any prospect, I think he's above the line, but as a Pennsylvania prospect, I think he's, made his way up and moved past that line.
Yeah, we're going to find out a lot about him here in the coming weeks because the one thing I'll say is just talking to Coach Carrera, like he thinks safety is going to be a spot long term. This guy's sent 40 plus Division I prospects,
right?
Out there, right? So I'll take his word for it. We'll see long term, but I think Penn State has a lot of interest in him. We're going to get some game film here in the coming weeks, and we'll see where he stacks up. But and just off the field, like he fits Penn State perfectly.
Yes,
like everything, everything, way he carries himself, what he cares about, he makes a lot of sense that he'd be someone in this class long term.
So if you want to get the rest of there, we left a lot of, we didn't have time to get to all the games. So go to bluewhiteillustrated.com, check out Ryan's article for the rest of
after
those
this, because I haven't posted it yet,
this.
but yeah.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I'm sorry. I went in and I got those. I don't normally do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. We'll get it up here as soon as the show's done. I had to go find all the links this morning. That was the last thing I had to do was make sure I could get those streams in there. Cause I think that's a valuable part of reading those stories, right? Being able to go back to it, click on it Friday night and boom, takes you right there.
So let's get into the primetime event, Penn State versus Nevada, coming up at 3:30. The first game of what could be a very important, maybe a historical, setting the hype way too high already season for Penn State football. And it kicks off against non-conference foe, the Nevada Wolfpack. Again, 12:30, we'll have our tailgate show here on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel and 99.5 The Bus. You can get more Penn State football talk, 90 minutes of hype before the game. But I want to get your thoughts here. Fitz, we haven't really talked about the game specifically. James Franklin mentioned 50 new players on the roster for Nevada this year. So coming into a season, it's always hard. But I guess, what are you expecting from this game? What do you want to see from Penn State? What is a good outcome for the Nittany Lions outside of the final score and people singing Sweet Caroline in the third quarter?
Yeah, I want to see the passing game click. And what I mean by that is not necessarily just throwing it 50 yards down the field and hoping somebody runs under it. It's just, kind of moving the chains with the passing game. And I think that's been an emphasis in camp, is how do you make things work with what you think is going to be bread and butter, which is the running game, the offensive line. You get the backs back. Obviously, you're going to use them. But yeah, you got to get Drew in sync with these guys, and all of them, not just the three transfers, but also Khalil Dinkins, Luke Reynolds, Andrew Rapplier there, the backs out of the back, just kind of everybody sort of getting a piece and getting a taste of it, and being structurally sound. And I think that's the big thing coming out of it is execution. Yeah, there's going to be mess ups, there's going to be drops and things like that. And I shouldn't have led with drops, because that's what it'll be latched onto. But you're going to have a situation where you need to be you need to strive for perfection in your execution, because you're going to be so much more physical and better than your opponent. You got to do the right things to put yourself in the right spot. So I'm looking for more crispness. I should not say that word. That was not a good look by me, but more crispness from the offense. But how much you're going to be able to tell is really going to be my question here coming out of it. I said something earlier on the board. It's like, 2018, they were averaging 55 points a game after the first 4 games. And then they averaged 24 from there on out. Like, you can't tell what kind of offense this is going to be based on the next 3 weeks. And we'll probably fall into that trap. We'll probably talk about how good the offense looks eventually, but they've got things to iron out. This is a work in progress. This is something where if you come out expecting the 94 offense, you're going to be disappointed. This is something that they have to iron out over the next couple of weeks. They'll do that with reps. They'll do that with different combinations of personnel, and they'll do that with more passing than you would think. I think a lot of the folks will revert back to, well, if you can't just run it down their throat, why wouldn't you do that? Well, I think there's a lot of things to work on. So I think this is a working trip rather than just making a steamroller out of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Ryan, what are you looking for? What are you interested in for this weekend to learn more about Penn State football?
We talked about it last week as far as, positions we have circled, linebackers. I'll keep coming back to that, and especially just the depth part of it there. I feel pretty comfortable, obviously, about those top 3 in DeLuca and Rojas and Campbell, but that continues to be a storyline that I think people are talking about. So just kind of seeing the depth there and who emerges. One thing I'll say about this game is, when you look at these 3 games, these 3 non-conference games, this is the one that makes sense in my eyes to leave the starters in a little longer, right? Work out those kinks. It's that first game. It's not going to be perfect. Yeah. I kind of think that we could maybe see them playing a little longer, especially with FIU and Villanova. Maybe you'll get some more backups then. I know fans want it to be a blowout right away, right? And see some of those young guys or, those juniors and sophomores who are in reserve. But to me, this one kind of makes a little more sense to let those guys, let your starters get into a bit more of a rhythm. At the end of the day, obviously we all expect Penn State to win pretty handily. It's a 43.5-point spread. I expect it to end somewhere around there. I think my prediction was 56-10. Am I beating the? I don't know if you had a score.
You're beating the graphic, but that's all right. You can repeat it later. That's fine.
Yeah.
I just need to reuse it for the tailgate show for filler at the end. That's all. So you just have to repeat it within a 3-minute segment.
Nevada just has so much, like their defense. I think they have one returning starter, right? I mean, everything's changed there. So
portal.
I think,
I mean, that's the reality for this level of program is that it's just going to be just a washing machine, just over and over again. You're just going to have to refill those rosters, which sounds awful if you're a coach. I'm not going to lie.
Especially somebody plays well, like Isaiah Worlds, who actually from last year, a team that struggled, played really well, and suddenly he's at Oregon.
Right.
It's interesting. I kind of have a different perspective from you guys about this game, given what they went out and did in the offseason, and the fact that they, Fitz, you mentioned, you referenced 2018. And I think that's a really good point. But to me, the offensive line was still an issue in 2018 where it wasn't as solidified as this year. So we knew in 2018 they had good playmakers. Like they had the explosive guys to then score and score efficiently. The goal this year from Stan Drayton is be explosive. You know, the passing game, be more efficient. So I guess I actually was thinking about 2018 a lot in the same way of 2016, 2017, 2018, those teams that were so dynamic and explosive. I think maybe that is a fair benchmark given maybe they're not as talented. They don't have Saquon Barkley, but they do have Nick Singleton. They don't have a Chris Godwin or out on the field necessarily, but they've got a lot of receivers that are seniors. So I guess I do kind of think like you want to put the dagger in early. You want to show some of those things of, okay, our running backs know how to read the hole and they're going to shoot off into the right gap and get a touchdown if you do not play perfect football. I was texting Landon before he was texting me. He's like, why does every team, like every Mountain West team or every Division II team play quarters? And that's really what I'm interested in how they're going to play, because that can go into how you attack, what's on the docket for Penn State to take advantage of in the second quarter once they adjust to, hey, what's the game plan? I don't see how Nevada can come out and play anything other than cover 3 with an extra safety in the box. I just have no idea how you're going to try and play with 2 deep safeties and Penn State rolls out with 2 tight ends and an All-American running back and a crazy good, massive offensive line. There are things that I think Penn State's going to do that are going to force them to play a certain way. And then if you've got 3 safeties deep, I agree with Fitz. I think the passing game needs to be an emphasis in this game. So those are kind of my thoughts about how I see, at least from the Penn State offensive side. Z-Man is in the chat. He says he wants to see Jim Knowles' defense. I'm also interested in that. Fitz, the post-game show, I feel like I'm going to be going to class during the game of like, okay, so I don't know, like when I came out of math class.
It's a must watch, because what you see live versus what you see in the time between when you go live and then when we go again on Tuesday, you're going to just like, you're going to go into your bunker and you're going to just be like frazzled, because it's going to be, you're going to be like, what the hell did I just see?
His shit's so complex.
I don't know how much they're going to set. I don't know how much they're going to show. But like in terms of the scheme, I think he makes a big difference. He makes a big difference compared to Tom Allen and what they do. And when you have a base to work with, which was a very, very good defense last year under Tom Allen, and you're not starting from scratch, that's going to be exciting. Now, how much does he pull out? I'm not they're hiding something for Oregon type thing, but defensively, get your stuff in. What are you going to need to do versus what are you going to do? I'm interested to see it, man. It's going to be fun. And I think that going back to your previous point, the angles are going to be different for Nevada, for FIU, for Villanova. And I think that that's really what it comes away with. If Nick Singleton breaks an 80-yard run, does he break that same run against Oregon, whose safety is probably faster and probably a better football player than Nevada's? I think that those are the little things. So when I'm saying about execution is like, if he's got 2 yards to spare from that safety, if that's 1 yard to spare against Oregon, that's still a touchdown. Like that those are the little things that you're looking at, is how do you put yourself in the place to execute to perfection, which is not going to happen. It's college football. But how do you put yourself in that position to get yourself and replicate what you think you're going to see against Oregon against an inferior opponent? It's how it works.
Okay, so let's get to our predictions. Ryan, you lead us off. What is your prediction for this game?
56-10. Here's my bet. Over 56.5. I think that's a little safer than the spread. I think Penn can keep 2 touchdowns in the quarterback, especially because when they do rotate, I mean, there's a lot of proven kids who are hungry to take advantage of these 3 games, right? So, I like Penn State being able to get into the 50s. To me, it's just whether the second string linebackers, second string, third string defensive backs, can they keep Nevada from scoring late? Like, that's what it comes down to, which is why I kind of like the over a little bit more than playing a 43.5. Well, that number keeps coming down, just like the over under. The over under started at 60.5, and now it's at 56.5, which to me, that's a 4-point gap there is, I think, worth playing the other side now, considering how far it's dropped. But I think Penn State should be able to get to 56. Nevada will probably get some points. That'd be my play.
Yep. Lines provided by BetMGM, by the way. So, Fitz, what are your predictions for this weekend?
I've got Penn State 55, Nevada 7. I looked at what Nevada's coach said about their team, and he said they've been very physical. I think that's very good for Penn State, just in terms of like somebody else hitting you from a different angle is going to benefit you, but also the gap there. Nevada was losing a lot after last season. So I just, in the portal world, maybe they can gel by Mountain West Conference season, but this is a really tall ask of them to come in here and to do much of anything. Chubba Purdy, though, the quarterback, he's been at Florida State, he's been at Nebraska, got some talent there, got some athleticism, and a guy that can, when things break down, can maybe make some plays. I think Penn State will be fine against him, but it's just it's a different style of quarterback that will give teams trouble down the line. I don't know what's going to happen this weekend.
T-Fred, can I add one thing real quick?
Sure, go for it.
One thing I didn't mention too is Nevada's 3 best games last year were Minnesota, Oregon State, and SMU. Like, as far as the way they played, they came within 5 points of SMU, and they upset Oregon State. Obviously, Penn State's a better team than all 3 of them. We know that. My point with that is, I do think they have a good coaching staff. Like, they clearly go for big games. Again, which is kind of why I feel like, maybe Penn State will play their starters a little bit more. I could see maybe that first quarter being a little bit more competitive than fans will want. But I just wanted to point that out, that, they did get up for those games. But again, half the roster is gone from that. So it's hard to know.
With some of the coaching points that I noticed watching them this August, trying to prepare for this game, is the sound coaching decisions. Some of the things they do. I thought that despite the fact they didn't have a passing game, their offense, they were able to find yards, especially with that quarterback run game. There are aspects of this team that I think are good and that can challenge Penn State. As you guys said, hit them, make them feel like it's a game.
You'll find good coaching at that level. That's the thing. Yeah. Like, you'll find better coaches at that level than some of the higher Power 4 coaches. Like that, and now those Power 4 coaches were once upon a time probably at that level as well. But it's just interesting because it's so tough. Like I said earlier, I wouldn't want to do it because that's by the time you develop a player, now all of a sudden he's in the portal and that's his right. But it's just got to be just like a punch in the groin there. That's tough.
Yeah, I mean, hell, Power 4 teams are experiencing the same thing. I can't imagine being, a Mountain West team. I have, as I mentioned earlier, I was thinking about those Saquon Barkley teams, those Miles Sanders teams. 66-6 is where I'm going with this, because I think that Penn State, the intention is to be explosive. The intention is to show that you have all those things. So I'm going to go with 66-6 here for the Nittany Lions winning in this game in a statement fashion, and everyone feels great about it. So that's it for today's show. The next time we're on air, we're talking to you live from outside Beaver Stadium. Of course, these guys are going to be inside Beaver Stadium. They're going to be giving you the game day atmosphere over at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. Excellent post-game content, written articles, photo galleries from Ryan. There's, the post-game analysis as well from Fitz. So, again, Fitz, where can people go to get that information from you guys on game day?
Oh, I'm sorry, I was reading the chat. BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. We got some stuff in the works. I thought you were signing out, and I was reading the comments on Chaz Coleman, which I can't wait to see Chaz Coleman on Saturday. Look at that on BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. Check out the message board. Talk about it there, and talk about it. See if you see T. Frank outside the stadium, don't be offended that he's going to shake your hand and look elsewhere, because there's shiny things going on around him, which is the pregame show, and he's he's really looking forward to it. But hey, I can't wait to be out there on Saturday, and I'm sure that's the case for you. So definitely check us out. Follow us on the site, subscribe to the excuse me, subscribe to the site. I ran out of voice here. Subscribe to the site. Follow us on the YouTube and subscribe to the YouTube because it really helps us out. We appreciate it.
Perfect weekend for tailgating, guys. Enjoy it.
Oh, yeah.
Sunscreen.
All right.
Yes. To everybody, including Nate. Yeah.
Yes. All right. We'll talk to you when it happens. This is it for BWI Live. We'll see you on Saturday.